Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Good morning. Okay, hold on. Let's make sure we're live while I'm talking. Hold on. Okay, I think I just saw us. We are. So, great morning. Good morning to our replay viewers. How are you? Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning. Welcome to today's broadcast. I'm feeling a little more like myself, and so we're going to get through secret number 21. So good morning to everybody. Let's go ahead and pop this in. All right, y'all. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and pray first because I definitely need that. And then we're going to go ahead and dig in. So, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for another incredible, amazing day. Father, I will be lying to you if I said the last few days were not challenging, but I trust you. And this morning, I am wise enough to know that today is a day that you have made, and I choose to rejoice and be glad in it. God, we just thank you for allowing us to see another day and be a part of another day on this side of heaven. We know that since we are here, there is more purpose in us. This morning, Father, as we dig into another secret, it's been several days, and as we dig into another secret, God, just reveal yourself. I definitely need you this morning. I need your strength. I need your spirit. And so allow me to step aside in the natural so that you can supernaturally take over and share with us whatever it is that you would have us to know this morning. God, we know that in all things you told us to get an understanding. And so this morning we seek an understanding. We seek your spirit. We seek your wisdom. And we thank you for being so just, so merciful, so gracious. We thank you that you'll give us the desires of our heart. And this morning we desire more of you. So God, we thank you for your presence. You said that where two or more are gathered, you would be in the midst. And so God, that we gather in your name. So I know you are here. And I ask you for just an extra special dose of your spirit this morning. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, y'all. Good morning. So today we are actually reviewing secret number 21 in our book, Business Secrets from the Bible. So once again, if you have stumbled upon this video, maybe somebody shared it with you, you have no clue who we are, what we're doing. We are reviewing this book right here that is getting a lot of good wear and tear. It is called Business Secrets from the Bible and Spiritual Success Strategy. There we go. Spiritual Success Strategies for Financial Abundance. The author is Rabbi Daniel Lapin. The book is actually based on quite a bit of Jewish wisdom. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're reading. We made it halfway through this bad boy, and now we are on to secret number 21. There are 40 secrets in the book, so we are starting literally the second half of this book. Secret number 21 is about the fact that change is scary. That's what we're talking about this morning. All right, so it's so interesting because he starts, or not necessarily starts, but he talks about this story a lot of us are familiar with. A lot of us are familiar with the story of, and it's an anecdote, and honestly, I don't even know if it's true, but a lot of us have heard this before, that if you take a frog and you throw it into boiling water, it's going to hop out. The water's too hot. But if you take that frog and you put him in just room temperature water and you turn the fire on underneath the pot, the frog will sit there because it's comfortable. And as the water starts to gradually warm up, the frog doesn't notice. Until he starts to notice, then it's too late. He's literally boiled to death. And so it's the gradual temperature increase that he can withstand. And because he can withstand the gradual increase, ultimately he dies as a result. But if you shock him by throwing him in boiling water, he's just going to jump right out. The water's too hot. He can feel that. But he cannot feel the gradual change in temperature when he starts in room temperature water and it continues to elevate and go up until it's boiling. And so he will sit there until he dies. So let me tell you the interesting thing about that. People are similar. Change is scary. I found this chapter so incredibly interesting because change can be scary. How many times do we not want to experience something because we don't know what it's going to be like? Then it turns out to be kind of amazing. It reminds me of the first time my son This was one, it was just him, me, him and his dad. Like, it was just us. We didn't have any additional children. It was just him. And he was probably 5. And so he was going to a summer camp for the first time. I found this great summer camp for him to go to. This was when I worked in corporate America. And so my husband still worked. I worked. We worked completely opposite schedules. And so it was summer. I needed to figure out, what do we do for the summer? So we enrolled him in a summer camp. And the summer camp was literally all day long. You dropped them off at 6 in the morning. You didn't pick them up until, I don't know, it was something like 5 at night, something like that, right? And so, I remember him literally in tears. He did not want to go. Oh my God. And we were trying to tell him, Jalen, you are going to have fun. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to be good. You're going to like it. And he was in tears. He did not want to stay. And I remember when I dropped him off and I walked him inside, and it was a church-based, what do you call it? It was a summer camp that a church did every summer. Great church here in the Chicagoland area. It wasn't our home church, but great church in the Chicagoland area. What's up, Eugenia? Good morning. And they had a performing arts summer camp. So I remember dropping him off, and he was in tears. It was like the saddest day. And so I go ahead and I was like, you're going to have fun. You're going to have fun. And so I leave, and he is so sad. Like, he is just, oh my God, he's so sad. So all day I'm wondering, how is it going at summer camp? And my mom's on here, know the drill. Oh my God, you guys know the drill. So all day I'm wondering, how is it going? Hoping he's doing okay. Trying not to call, let him have an experience. So when I go to pick him up that day, I'm like, I hope this boy had fun. I hope it was enjoyable. Go pick him up. Car comes around. He comes to the door, gets in the car. Mom, it was so much fun. And he could not even tell me about the day fast enough. He starts rattling off what they did here. Then they did this, and they did this, and they did this, and they did this. And it was amazing because he just did not want to be there. And moms, you guys know how this works. The first day, they don't want to go. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the day, they're so happy that they went. It even happens when they, in a lot of cases, when they first start preschool or kindergarten and things like that. So it was a performing arts summer camp. He continued to go there for like the next, I don't know, like the next 3 years. He went there for a total, next 2 years, for a total of like 3 years, until we moved or they closed. One of the two, I don't remember, but they're not around anymore. Because if they were, I would enroll my daughter in a minute. It was one of the best decisions we made. Why? Because I pushed my son to get out. I remember the first performance they did like 2 or 3 performances that summer. And the first one, he was so nervous. One of them, he had to sing. Like, he was so insanely nervous. Now, he can speak in front of people without a problem. And so I pushed him to overcome that fear early, because I understood the power of being able to speak in front of people. I understood it early, and I didn't want them to grow up being afraid when all they needed to do was just kind of learn the skill set. And so it's one of the best decisions that we've ever made. One of the best decisions. So change is scary. He was terrified of going to that summer camp. I mean, terrified. And he had the most impeccable time. Now, yesterday, I took him shopping because he got quite a bit of money for graduation. So the agreement was he couldn't spend all of it. We had a pre-agreed upon amount that he could spend. So before we go to the store, I'm like, okay, so what is it that you want to buy? What are you looking for? So while we're in the car headed to the store, I said, are you excited? Like, how do you feel about going to high school next year? Because he'll be a freshman in high school. He said, I don't know. I said, you don't know? Are you nervous? He was like, no. I said, are you excited? He was like, I don't know. He said, I don't know anything about it, so I don't know how to feel about it. He said, how can I have feelings about something that I don't know about? And I was like, that's interesting. The reason I found that interesting is because I remember being remarkably excited to go to high school. My expectations were high, right? But I also, what I really liked was the tempered emotions about it. Like, why get excited? I don't know what to expect. Why get upset? I don't know what to expect. I just don't know what to expect. So I'm just going to wait and experience it. And I honestly really like that perspective. And this is my 14-year-old son. I like the perspective of, I really honestly don't know what it's going to be, Mom. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see in August. That's pretty much his perspective. It's so interesting. Great morning, Laskaya. I see you. And I can't tell who that is. I'm hopping over now so I can. But yes, so it was just really interesting. Whoever said great morning, happy to see you this morning. It's good to see you too. I just honestly cannot tell who that is. So forgive me because your name does not pop up on StreamYard. Let's see. But I'm trying to do my best to find you. Hold on. Where are you watching from? I don't know where you're watching from. Is that you, Ann? If it is, great morning. Okay, I see you. Yes, that's Ann. I was like, is that you? I can't tell. Okay, so great morning, Ann. So yes, change can be scary, but I really like his tempered emotions about it because he's not allowing himself to get too emotional too fast. Now, what he talks about in here that I really, really, really like is we understand that change is scary. As humans, in our quest for wealth, I even underlined this. He said, we'd rather money just come to us without the need for change. We get so comfortable or uncomfortable with change. We just don't want anything to change. We don't want to advance our speaking skills or work on our sales skills or our closing skills or our prospecting skills or any of that kind of stuff in business. We just want business to come to us. We don't want to work on our networking skills. In reality, a lot of us, especially when our children are small, we don't even want them to grow up. We just want them to stay the ages that they are, enjoy the process of just enjoying them, as tiny children and enjoying that process. We don't want them to get older. We don't want our jobs to change. We just want to make more money, but we don't necessarily want the job that we're doing to change. Like, I'm comfortable here. I know how to do it. Been in this job for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years. I don't want the job to change. I just want to make more money. I don't want my boss to change. Like, we're so comfortable with where we are, and the idea of changing is stressful. But the reality is that things are going to change. They will change. We can't change that. I remember somebody saying, and I'm sure you've heard it, the one thing that's inevitable is the fact that we're going to experience change. Nothing is going to stay the same. The fact that we stress about it doesn't change the fact the change is inevitable. It's not going to change that. And this sentence was actually quite enlightening. He said, the more permanent the impending change, the more stress we feel. I thought that was powerful because that is insanely true. The more permanent the impending change, the more stress we feel. And so one of the things that he studied or he looked at as a Jewish man, he doesn't watch a lot of stuff about the Holocaust. He said he doesn't need, obviously he grew up and his family talks a lot about family members that they lost in concentration camps and, in the Holocaust. So they talk personally about family members that they lost. And so he doesn't go out and watch movies like Schindler's List. He doesn't go out and watch all the documentaries about the Holocaust. They have personal stories. They don't need the documentaries. He said, but there was something that fascinated him. What fascinated him were the accounts of the survival accounts. And so he gives this, he takes a section out of a book. Her name is Micheline Morrow. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Listen to how she speaks in this section. She said, be happy, you who live in fine apartments, in ugly houses or in hovels. Be happy you have loved ones and you also sit alone, and you who also sit alone and dream and can weep. Be happy, you who torture yourself over metaphysical problems, and you, the sick, who are being cared for, and you who care for them. And be happy, oh how happy, you who die a death as normal as life in a hospital bed or in your home. And the point is, the experience that they had in the concentration camps was so extremely outside of normal to be happy for normal. And a lot of the times we get irritated and frustrated with normal. And so he became fascinated with survival literature, not the stories of what happened in the concentration camp, but survivors who wrote their literature. He became fascinated with that. And so as he starts to look at that, he starts to question, why is it that some people that would just immediately, they just could not survive a concentration. Immediately, they couldn't survive the change. And why is it that some people did? What was the difference between, and I'm sure this isn't the difference between everyone, but he just wanted to know, what is the difference between those who managed to withstand the horrible atrocities that happened, and then others perished in a few days? Like, what was the difference between them? And he noticed something that surfaced, and that thing was this. He said, one very powerful truth of survival surfaced repeatedly in my studies. A truth we must all surely apply to our own dealings with the constant and distressing changes we face in our busy professional lives. So what is he saying? I'm going to get to the truth in a moment. That this truth that he found, we can actually use the concept of this in our busy lives, in our professional lives on a daily basis. Like we can take, excuse me, we can take what surfaced and we can use it. Okay, this is what he found. What I observed was that humans can become accustomed to almost anything. You hear that? Almost anything, no matter how awful, no matter how dreadful, just so long as it develops gradually. What stresses us past the point of breaking is sudden change. That is profound. Think about your own life. Think about some of the things that you have been through, be it good, be it horrible. Think about some of those things. Now, what allowed you, even in the most trying circumstances, what helped you survive through them? Think about, like if there was this middle section you could take out, because normally these things develop gradually. If you could take out all of the middle and you just have the beginning where you were and the end, the shock of maybe a horrible situation, you take out the middle, you go from the beginning to the end. Most people cannot survive that. Most people would be like the frog. You dump them in the hot boiling water, they can't survive that. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh my God, wait, the frog immediately jumps out. But what happens is when you place a person in circumstances that are room temperature, like when you place the frog in room temperature water in a pot and it's comfortable, it doesn't feel so bad. And you gradually, you turn on the fire under the pot and you gradually heat up the temperature of the water. Well, we don't necessarily feel it when it's happening gradually. We don't feel it. And so gradually the water gets hotter and hotter. Gradually circumstances get hotter and hotter. He gives the example of a Jewish family pre-World War II. A Jewish family is perfectly fine. One night they might get a little direct discomfort from, like the Nazis who arrive in town. And there's a little discomfort. They're not immediately grabbed, thrown into concentration camps, but there's a little discomfort. There's some things that they do. He gives some great examples here. He says at first, the middle-class Jewish families in the town might experience little direct discomfort when the Nazis arrive, right? But eventually their mansion is forced to accommodate several other families. So in the beginning, it's nothing big. But then all of a sudden, you got to move people into your home. Okay, that's one thing. It's not killing me, but it's one thing. Then Jewish areas are quarantined. Then they're turned into ghettos, but life continues. Little deprivations turn into bigger ones. They don't take all the food away at once, but it becomes scarce. Little by little, casual indignities in the street turn into blood-chilling humiliations and then outright threats. But it started as little things, a little humiliation here, a little humiliation there, a casual indignity here. Then it just continues to grow until it becomes an outright threat. It might be several weeks or months before physical violence begins to occur. Sometimes a year or two pass between invasions, when middle-class Jewish people lived in comfort, and when life turned into struggle for survival. Then they were sent off to what he calls death camps, understandably so. So they had this gradual decline in their life. Gradual. And he says the very gradual decline of life, that gradual slow deterioration that they experienced over the past years, gave many the opportunity to endure what they eventually faced at places like Auschwitz. Those who saw gradual deterioration, gradual change, had the best chance of survival, as opposed to the family who was very comfortable, and then all of a sudden military police comes in and just wipes them out, throws them in whatever it is, they took them buses, whatever, to concentration camps. It wasn't gradual, it was a shock. And so they were less likely to be able to adjust. It's gradual. He says what this tells us is that in order to manage change, any change, be it change wrought by war or changes in the marketplace, we must avoid sudden, dramatic changes in our life. Such change most shocks us. With sufficient time to acclimate, we can adjust to almost any condition. This is so powerful. And so he talks about how there's a study that is done. And in this study, it was a psychologist back in 1967. His name was Thomas Holmes. And he did a study. He wanted to measure people's how they reacted to change, and he actually wanted to give it like a numerical value. And so one of the things that was the highest was the death of a loved one. He gave that a numerical value of 100. Somehow or another, he was able to measure these stressful events and assign them a numerical value. I don't know the details, but that's the purpose of this study. So the death of a loved one resulted in a stress level of 100, literally the highest you can go. Divorce scores 70, which is also high. Retirement, it says, which surprises a lot of people, scored a 45, which is kind of like midway, which means that it brings on a higher stress level. Now that's shocking to a lot of people, but this is why it should not be shocking, because wisdom tells us that work, and we should understand this by now, which is a service to our fellow man, actually brings us joy and a sense of purpose. How many times, I can't imagine if I did not work like a traditional job anymore. I just realized I only have on one earring, you guys. I can't imagine if I didn't work a traditional job anymore, right? And in addition to not working that traditional job, I didn't do anything, like nothing. I didn't own a business. I didn't do any coaching. I didn't do much with the kids. I can't imagine how much of a lackluster, meaningless life that would be. I can't imagine doing that. What makes my life so fulfilling is I don't work anymore. And this morning, it was so interesting during meditation. I got clarity on something, which was really powerful and I'm grateful about. Just even more about purpose and moving forward and some things. And now, because I get the ability to coach, because I'm building a network marketing business, which allows me to pour into people at a different type of level, even than coaching does. Oh my God. Because I'm teaching our children certain things. Life has meaning. Life has purpose. And so you must have some type of work. So retirement shocks people. The change, you're working all these years, and then all of a sudden you got nothing to do. For a lot of people, that change is too dramatic. So dramatic so that my dad went back to work. Yeah, my dad is one of those individuals who retired only to not retire anymore. He needed something to do. So he was a truck driver forever, okay? And so he was bored out of his mind. So he decided to start driving a school bus. My dad's driven a school bus for the last 10 years. And I'm like, why are you're not tired of driving? He's not sure if he's going to go back next year. He's not sure. But he retired like 10 years ago. But the boredom, the change, it was too shocking. He had to do something else, right? So one of the things is, how can you use this when we're talking about business, when we're talking about success strategies? I want you to know gradual change is better. When you shock yourself too much, it causes stress. This is one of the reasons I never encourage people who are doing things like network marketing. I never encourage them to just quit their job, take the leap. I never encourage it, because the stress factor can be out of this world. That is such a huge and significant change. And in a lot of cases, people do not have the right skill sets in place. They don't have the right practices embedded. They don't have the right success habits already ingrained in order to be able to succeed right away. So you put yourself in an extremely stressful position. And once you do that, when you're presenting information, it comes from a different place. And now you seem, instead of hungry for success, you seem thirsty because you need to take care of your bills and you need this person to sign up, or else you're not going to be able to pay your mortgage. That's not the position we want to put people in. Change, gradual. If you are a person who is building a business and you are still finding yourself like you're still working your 9 to 5, I believe this to the core of my being. Appreciate the fact that you are working. Appreciate the fact that you have a job which will take care of your bills while you continue to build your fortune. Appreciate it. Change your perspective before you make a massive change out of frustration that causes a significant impact and stressful impact in your life. Okay? Because quitting your job and stressing over paying bills, that's not the place that you want to work from. It's not. However, once again, think of your job. If you are still working a traditional 9 to 5 job, part-time, whatever it is, if you have a job, think of your job as that place that allows you to build your business gradually. Why is that important? Because building a business out of stress, for most people, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I know in a lot of cases, we feel like, oh, we're the ones that are going to be different. I get that. But why put yourself in that position? Build your business while you have your job. You are in a beautiful place that you should have gratitude for, not be frustrated by. If you are frustrated by it 9 times out of 10, you're just not you're not thinking from the right perspective. Okay. A lot of people are like, oh my God, my job is slowing me down. No, your job is paying your bills so you can work on your fortune. The reality is, for most people, if you can't figure out how to build your fortune while you have a job, once you get rid of your job, you're still not going to do it. And I understand that most people like to me that doesn't make any sense. That is because if you work 9 to 5 and you cannot find 4 to 5 hours to push yourself, even with the family. Yep. I'm just going to say, even with the family, because that was me. I still had a kid. I still had one child at that time, one. If you can't find a couple hours, maybe you can't do 4 or 5 because you have multiple children, multiple responsibilities. But if you can't find 1 to 2 hours a day, if you can't find it, even while you're doing dinner, even while you're sitting at dinner engaging with the kids, even if you can't make work like some family activity where the kids enjoy it, whatever it is, you got to be creative. If you can't find 1 to 2 hours a day while you're working, what's going to happen is you're going to have all this free time once you stop working, and you're going to think you're going to use all that time, but you haven't learned how to use an hour correctly. How are you going to use 8? Once you learn how to use the time you have well and correctly, then you can be trusted with more time. But before that, you can't. You think you can. That was me. That's how I know. I'm speaking from experience. We think we can be trusted with more time and that we'll use it adequately. No, we'll waste it and barely use an hour of the day. Okay, so you need to get system and structure in place first so you can change gradually, so you can make these adjustments gradually and not shock your system because change is going to cause stress, right? So one of the things he wants us to understand is that change is scary. We get that. When is that ever not true? It usually isn't true. Change can be scary, period. But it's one of these things that if we understand that change is scary, the biblical secrets let us know how to handle those. Okay. He says all of these biblical secrets are always true. Always. Regardless of the particular circumstances you find yourself in. One of those secrets is change is scary. Okay. He uses the story of Rachel and Leah and Jacob when he talks about change in the book. Change is scary. They are not telling you, he says, but the biblical secrets that he's sharing in these books, they're not hollow slogans. They're not telling us what to do, but rather they describe how the world is and how we should be in turn. But they don't give us direct advice on what course of action we should take in any given situation. That is the difference between a principle and steps. He's not giving us steps. He's giving us the principles. If change is scary, the question is, how do I negotiate and navigate change? Well, now that I understand the principle, now I can start to learn the steps, okay? Situations and circumstances change, but by following the principles laid out in the book, you'll be able to not merely avoid stress and change, right? But to mitigate them, cope with them, and continue on with your life. So what does that look like? Some things, what can we do if we know that change is inevitable? What can we do at this point to mitigate some of those changes when it comes to business? We can understand not, in our own cases, not to put ourselves in situations, if it's avoidable, don't put ourselves in situations that cause drastic change immediately. What we can do is temper it. Okay. How do we do that? Well, if you know that you are currently an employee, so you're a W-2 employee, and you want to become you want to get out of the land of the W-2 employee, and you really want to be a full-time entrepreneur. Well, what you don't do, what we just talked about, is just jump over, quit your job, jump over, no savings, no nothing, no nothing. We plan for the change. We plan for it. We plan for it financially. So you start working on getting your finances in shape. You plan for it financially, but guess what else you also do? You also put things in place for your business. So that may mean doing a simple concept that I do is the number of phone calls you make every day. If you're not making any phone calls, if you're not talking to any of, you want to build a business, but you have no prospects, the first thing that you need to learn how to do is, I need to learn how to prospect. How do I do that? Once you learn how to do that, then you need to make sure you're making phone calls every day, right? It's going to be very challenging to go from 0 phone calls to 50 phone calls a day. So don't. Start with 10 calls a day. Call 10 people. What does that look like? That looks like once you figure out how to prospect for your particular business, whatever that is, you're calling 10 prospects every day. That's it. And once you hit 10, you finish that goal for the day. And so now it's not a drastic change. I quit my job and all of a sudden I'm an entrepreneur, but I got no finances to back that thing up. Now you're not doing that to yourself. You're gradually putting things in place. Okay? So what this ancient Jewish wisdom and this biblical secret tells us is we understand that change is going to be scary. How do we navigate those waters? If we know it's going to happen, then we can try our best not to put ourselves in positions where we create unnecessary sudden change. Secret number 22, which we'll be talking about tomorrow, is as painful as change can be, it often contains the seeds of growth. Yeah, that one right there, that's going to be a good one. So great. So Laskaya says, that's the boat that I'm in since I lost my job, right? So losing a job, sudden change, sudden change. And so how do you navigate those waters? In this case, that's an uncontrollable one. You had no control over the fact that you lost your job, right? So now it's, what can we do to mitigate that? It's also going to be, it's already scary. So what can we do to mitigate it? Well, Laskaya has backup plans. Laskaya already has a network marketing company. company. LaSkya is looking at some other options when it comes to her business and being an entrepreneur. And so one of the things is, what can you control? What can you do? So you want to look at the pieces of this that you can control. Those pieces are this: who can you call every day? How many people, how many calls can you make a day? This is real talk. Angela also says, listen, make sure you're mentally prepared as well. So the mental preparation, absolutely. Ooh, Lord, absolutely. So what can you do? You control the controllables. You guys may remember that I shared at one point when we went through a very, very, very difficult financial patch. Oh my God, it was hard. And I remember when we lost our home and it went into foreclosure. And the crazy thing was, I learned a coping mechanism that I did not realize would really help me to this day. And that was whenever we would get the phone calls. Because see, there's this thing where when you're losing a house, when it goes into foreclosure, we went to court for it, everything. But there's this thing, I remember at one point, obviously we get a lot of phone calls, the mail. But then at one point, there would be a person. I remember him sitting in front of the house one day. And I was just like, what is he doing? And then I saw him walk up to our door. I was like, what is he doing? And look in. And so I went to the door and I opened the door. I was like, hi, can I help you? He was like, no, I was just checking to make sure you guys were still here. What? And so he would do that periodically. And at some point, I learned that what the bank does is they send people out to your house to see if you've left the property. So they're just checking to see if you're there during that process. And it was just one more thing on top of all the mental, just everything going through at that time. So what did I do? Instead of focusing on the fact that we were losing our home, instead of focusing on the phone calls, instead of focusing on the mail, instead of focusing on the stress of the court case, instead of focusing on this man constantly coming to our house to check and see if we're still there, instead of focusing on any of that, you know what I chose to do? Whenever I would get overwhelmed with those emotions, which would be often, I would grab names and I would start calling prospects to see if I could set up appointments, see if I could get people to come out to our presentation. I would start generating some more content to put out online. That way I could also do some attraction marketing techniques at the exact same time that I was doing traditional network marketing techniques. I was doing everything. I focused on the work because I could control the work. I could not control them sending this man to sit in front of our house every several days a week. I couldn't control any of that. That was his job. I couldn't control any of that part. What I could control was the work that I did. So I put in a lot of work during that season that prepared us for the very next one. That's what I did. So the recommendation that I would give you is this, LaSkya. One of the things, my book's not down here because my bag's upstairs. What I have, especially in network marketing, y'all, you got to have a list of people that you can talk to. And that list has to keep expanding. It's upstairs. It has to keep expanding. And so you should be adding people to that list all the time. In addition to that, you should be calling people every single day. Who can you set up appointments with? Who can you talk to virtually? You control the parts that you can control. That's what you do. You control the controllables. Okay. And that's what we do. I constantly control what I can control. I'm constantly doing presentations. I'm constantly reaching out to people. You have to get creative. You have to. Okay. And so in this season right now that we're in, you have Father's Day coming up. Get creative and perhaps do some type of campaign for Father's Day. Get creative. All right. And so we have back to school coming up. Get creative. Do some campaigns now. So even if you don't have product on hand, LaSkya, and they need to order it themselves, get creative so that they can start ordering it now. And they'll have it before their children return to school. So get creative. Get to calling and get in a creative space. Get in a quiet space so you can think and allow the ideas to flow. Get creative. Prayerfully that helps. And we'll continue to love on you from this end, okay? All right, you guys, that does it for today. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me over these last couple of days. I really appreciate it. It feels good to really just start talking about this again. and not just me. Love you guys to life. Have an amazing, what is today, Wednesday? Have a wonderful Wednesday. It's hump day, y'all. Wow, already. And I will see you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern.